Board of Zoning Appeals of the City of Westminster is now in session. Call everybody to order. Andrew, I probably should have asked this ahead of time, but I didn't see any minutes from the last minute to be read and approved. Did anybody else?
And I'll jump in. I apologize for that. There was discussion as to the extent of the minutes now that we're recording, to what level of information needs to be provided. So we've been in discussion with Alyssa and the city attorney, Brian Matthews, the city manager. So once we had some clarification as to the extent of what's needed for the minutes, now that we know that, we will get those out. So unfortunately, we don't have them for this meeting, but we will have them for next meeting.
Okay,
So there'll be a lot less information provided because by state law, now that we're recording these meetings, they are therefore available for public view. So the minutes do not have to be as detailed.
okay. Other board members have any
question for the
questions or
board.
comments about that?
The minutes are the question of the board, not the city.
I'm sorry, say that again, Eric.
The extent of the minutes are a question for the Board of Appeals as the administrative agency, not the city, which is a party.
So then I'll put that to the board as to the extent of the minutes. Again, I think what we did in the past is that we had somebody that was a transcriber that we paid, but we never obtained the actual information unless somebody from the public requested it. So we would do a little bit more detailed minutes because we didn't have actual record of it, of the meeting. So again, now that we're recording these and providing the recordings online for general public to view at any time, I guess that's what we're looking at for staff, providing a little less detail in the minutes.
Mark, is there a time limit on how long you plan to keep the recordings?
In perpetuity, we don't plan on ever taking them down. And then if somebody needed them to be transcribed for some reason, we would hire somebody to review the recording and transcribe from the recording.
Can copies then be made of the recordings and that be provided if somebody were to request the record?
We certainly could. If they couldn't, it's online today. So if you went online under the BZA webpage, you can look at all the recordings,
Okay,
agendas as well. And then, but certainly if somebody requested it, we could certainly provide that in a, either send it to them or if we had to copy it, provide them copies of the recording.
okay. Any of the board members have any other questions or comments about that?
I guess from Eric's perspective, do you need a motion from the board, or are we okay with the waiver, with the information we have on the record here?
You don't have anything before you at the moment. So what I think you need to do is get the minutes that staff are going to prepare for both this hearing and the next hearing in advance. And then at your next meeting, when you're going to actually consider those minutes, determine whether they're sufficient.
Yeah, okay, that's fine with me.
Okay, I guess we can move forward from there.
Thank you.
I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Okay, for tonight's case number 20-05, an application by Covalent Spirits LLC, the applicant and property owner. Property owner, The Garage LLC, requesting approval of a special exception to operate a microbreweries and pub breweries distillery licensed under the Annotated Code of Maryland Alcoholic Beverages Article, used to be located at 116 and to 118 East Main Street, Westminster, Maryland, pursuant to zoning ordinance Article 7B DB Downtown Business Zone, section 164-45.9A, parent 16, closed parent special exceptions. I guess we'll start with staff report comments.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I will provide a brief overview of the city staff report.
Okay.
The 2009 Westminster Comprehensive Plan sets goals, including to support the expansion and enhancement of retail, entertainment, and mixed-use development in downtown Westminster. Regarding section 164-170A-2A, the applicant should provide testimony on any possible noise and exhaust emanating from the proposed use and what effects such noise and fumes may have on the adjacent residential neighbors located across South Street to the rear of the property. Also, the applicant should address whether there will be any outdoor seating available between the building and East Main Street and the distillery operation and tasting room event venue. Furthermore, the applicant should comment on the hours of operation for both indoor and outdoor activities. Regarding section 164-170A-2B, city planning staff coordinated the water and sewer allocation review with the applicant and staff from the Carroll County Health Department. Staff concurs with the applicant's water usage calculations. Regarding section 164-170A-2C, it should be noted that the area to the rear of the building across South Street is zoned R7500 residential zone. Testimony should include any effects such as noise and lighting emanating from the off-street parking area. Regarding parking requirements, the applicant has stated that 21 off-street parking spaces are located on the property. Also, due to the property being located within the downtown parking area, the total number of parking spaces required may not exceed 26, which would be a 25% increase pursuant to the zoning ordinance. This commercial establishment has two defined and distinct uses, which are as follows. The distillery operations portion would be more of a manufacturing use. With that said, the applicant should provide testimony on how many employees would be employed during each major shift and if there will be any company vehicles or equipment using parking, so staff can analyze the parking requirements for this section of the building. The tasting room and event venue portion would be more of a tavern use. The applicant has intended to provide 40 seats requiring 10 parking spaces. The applicant should provide testimony on the square footage of this section of the facility and the number of proposed employees in this section of the facility so we can make sure that parking has been addressed. Once the applicant provides this information, the board and city planning staff can then determine if the existing 21 parking spaces are adequate for the proposed use. Please be advised that testimony should also include that each standard size perpendicular or angled parking space shall be a rectangle parking space meeting the minimum dimensions of 9 by 18 feet pursuant to the city zoning ordinance, and 2, indicate where dumpsters, if applicable, will be located in order to determine any reduction of the 21 parking spaces. Regarding signage, the applicant should provide evidence and testimony on any signage they are proposing. If the applicant is not proposing any signage at this time, they are then subject to the requirements of section 164-121D. Any proposed increase or change to this section of the city zoning ordinance will require the board to rehear this case, which is case 2005, or require a new special exception application before this board. In conclusion, zoning administration recommends that the Board of Zoning Appeals approve the proposed special exception use, subject to demonstrating adequate parking with the following condition. The one condition would be that a simplified site plan be submitted by the applicant and then subsequently reviewed and approved by city planning staff. Mr. Chair, I would like to submit the application into the record as exhibit number 1 and the staff report into the record as exhibit number 2. If you have any questions, please let me know. The applicant is also on this call as well. Thank you.
Okay, Eric, you've got those two exhibits.
Yes, we have application as Exhibit 1, staff report is 2. And there's just one technical question for staff that they might not have an answer for immediately, but might want to weigh in on later. And that is, unlike almost all the other provisions of the code, this one defines the use as being approved according to the annotated code, basically being a licensed microbrewery. And the question would be, would that also, would the staff also want that as a condition to maintain the special exception status?
And Mark, I will defer to you.
Can you rephrase that?
Sure. I'm going to go to the section defines the use to include its authorization under the annotated code of Maryland, basically its licensing. And the question is whether, normally our uses in the code are not defined that way, even though they might be required to have a license. And the question is, would staff have an opinion on whether, as a condition of the special exception, they would need to maintain that status so that the special exception flows with that status as a regulated microbrewery?
Well, and quickly, the use that's allowed in the district is microbrewery. Determination was made that distillery, winery, micro distillery are equal to the microbrewery in this case. So that's why we emphasize distillery in the staff report. So ultimately, it's under the umbrella of that microbrewery use. They act and function the same. As far as licensing from the state, they are required to maintain licensing. However, if the use runs with the property and they fall out of license, I would think you'd want to maintain this use if another user wanted to come in and apply, or at least if there was at no fault of the property owner, they lost that license and reissued the license, that the special exception is maintained as well. I would not like it to be lost due to licensing through a state agency that regulates the use. If that makes sense.
Eric, you got comment back to that?
No, it's not for me. It's for the board to weigh in on. I just saw that it was something that was specific, unlike most definitions of the uses, was specifically done. And so the question I anticipated that the board might have would be whether that needed to be a condition as well. And that's why, given at the staff level, I wanted their opinion on it. Thought the board might benefit from the staff's opinion.
Board have any questions in that regard?
Yeah, I would just say that since the special exception runs with the land, this particular owner, if they lose their license, I don't think, or it's suspended or whatever, I don't see that it would bear on what we're trying to do at this hearing. That's my opinion.
Brenda, you have any comments?
You're muted.
Muted.
I had a barking dog, so I was trying to. I don't think so. It sounds like if there was another use that came up, if they lost their license, we'd have to go through this. We'd have the same process for a different usage. So I don't think I have any questions.
I don't either. I think the corollary of microbrewery to micro distillery or using distillery as an analogy here, I think that probably seems to work from my viewpoint. So I guess we can proceed from here. Let me ask Jennifer Yang and anyone else who is going to testify here, be a witness. Let me swear you in all at one time as we get started. So if you will raise your hand so I can see it. Anyone who, so just about everybody, okay. Do you swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury that the testimony you are about to give is the truth? Let me hear you all say,
Yes.
you do, or yes.
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 All right, thank you. Now, at this point, Ms. Yang, it's on you to make your presentation to us.
Thank you very much. And Andrew's going to be driving the slides. So Andrew, I'll give you cues to kind of advance the slides and such.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. My name is Jennifer,
Hi, and I'm Drew.
and we are the folks behind Covalent Spirits and are very excited to be here today and to give a little bit of background about what this business will entail and talk a little bit about the operations and answer some of the items that Andrew had mentioned in the staff report.
Let me stop you there just for a moment. Eric, do we need more information in terms of identifying?
Need the gentleman's last name and their address for each of them.
Sure. It's actually full name is Andrew Cockley. That's Cockley. And our residence is 8 New Windsor Road, Westminster, Maryland, 21157.
Thanks.
And just so we can alert each of the other witnesses when it comes your turn, that's the same information we will require from you as well. Okay, Ms. Yang, go ahead. Thank you.
Great, thank you. And many of these slides were provided as part of our pre-hearing statement. So I'm going to kind of zip through them fairly quickly, but of course, if you have questions, please feel free and ask. Okay, Andrew, next slide, please. So what is Covalent Spirits? Covalent Spirits is a distillery, a tasting room, and event venue that hopefully coming soon to downtown Westminster on Main Street. And we are focused on product as well as experiences. And one of our mantras is about engaging, experimenting, experiencing, and educating. So we want to take the idea of crafting spirits, but take it to the next level. Next slide, please. We are tapping into the history here in Westminster. Drew has been a Carroll County resident for over 20 years. I am relatively new to Carroll County, but one thing that kind of struck a chord with me is how there used to be a really rich history here. And I remember once seeing the Sherwood Stack and asking the question of what is that and what used to be here. And I've always wanted to open a distillery. It's been something I've been thinking about for 8 years now. And so it seemed like it was a sign that this is a place for us to start this kind of business. So yeah, what a nice nod to the history that was here. Next slide, please. Yes, thank you. One of the reasons why we thought about that this is the right time for us, just give you a little bit of background. Craft distilling has been on the rise over the last several years. It is a $4.8 billion industry out of a very large total spirits market industry, and it's been growing every year. It's been contributing to the Maryland economy each year as well. Next. We are also seeing more of a shift into experiences, and not just around the spirit side, but around everything. So people are now want to spend their money on something where they can learn, laugh, and do something more unique versus just having a commodity product. So we want to kind of tap into that shift in buying pattern. Next. So these two together kind of eases into the idea of helping grow some tourism dollars in this area. Folks are craft distillings on the rise. People want experiences. Hey, why don't we offer that and provide more of that here in Carroll County? We looked over to our county next door at Frederick County. We see a bit of a difference in visitor spending, just under 4x. And Frederick is well known for its downtown, its vibrant Main Street, as well as its focus on craft beverage tourism, their wineries, breweries, distilleries, etc. So the idea is the more places to visit, the more people will spend their money per trip. Next slide. So that kind of leads us to here in Westminster. And next, there are over 30 distilleries in Maryland. You kind of see a cluster over there in Frederick. We are that orange little pin right there in Westminster. There are only 2 other distilleries in Carroll County. Andrew, next. And they're located in Mount Airy and in Sykesville, both of which are on main streets in a kind of historic downtown area. And our thoughts are, hey, would it be kind of cool to have another one here? And we're all about equidistance from each other and start to pull, create an even bigger magnet into Carroll County. Andrew, next. And if you add in the wineries, next, and the breweries, you can see more and more how this craft beverage industry could really be something that Carroll County can also really benefit from and thrive. And the idea would be is to pull some of that tourism dollars more into Carroll County and quite frankly, keep some of the money in Carroll County. A lot of folks we've spoken to are focus groups we've had, people talk about how they go outside the county for these kind of experiences. And it would be nice to kind of keep it here. And there's all this talk about, you know, the more you have, the bigger the draw. That becomes exponential after a while. So that's why we're really excited about doing it here in Westminster. Next slide, please. So a little bit about Covalent Spirits. Covalent Spirits, as mentioned earlier, we're going to focus on producing product, vodka, gin, whiskey, perhaps some aperitifs, digestives, lower ABV spirits. We really want to kind of tinker with different ideas. But the other side of it too is we also want to focus on the hospitality side of the house. Being located on Main Street gives us a great opportunity to kind of leverage and partner with other businesses and really create a space for people to gather. There are not a lot of places that I've noticed where people can come and gather for either a small event, family gatherings, a place to go with some more unique opportunities to learn and to experience. We also have our angle, part of our angle is also on philanthropy. I own several other businesses, and every one of my businesses gives a big chunk to charity. We raise money, we have different drives and funds. Philanthropy is a big part of both of our lives, and we want to make sure that we use any sort of corporate power we might have and try to set an example within the community as well, and be a hub for philanthropic initiatives too. Next slide. Our business focus is to engage with local businesses. One of the beautiful things about Carroll County is the access to so many different types of companies and farms and agriculture. I'm just excited to think about the different ways we can partner with other companies here, the breweries, wineries, you know, even the running store or the yoga studio. There's so many different things we can do together and have some more interactions together here. Next. We also are, one of our differentiations we want to have is to kind of play around with different products. So not only have flagship products, but also focus on experimenting with different things, different ideas. This will set us apart from some of the other distilleries in the state and really play around with some fun ideas. Next. As I mentioned earlier, the customer experience. We want to offer some curated experiences that you can't get anywhere else, and really help our customers really figure out what they like to drink and what they enjoy. And, you know, perhaps we'll also do things like a pop-up art gallery or a pop-up food event. You know, there's the event space is designed so that it can be used for almost any purpose. not just for spirits related or cocktail related. And we want our community to really tap into that and use that. And finally, next, we want to help our customers be a little more educated about what they are drinking. I believe that the more you appreciate what you're drinking, the more you understand your palate, the more we should always enjoy what we are eating or drinking. And one way to do that is to kind of learn what you like and don't like. So we want to kind of create some workshops. For those who want to geek out about it, we're going to create some workshops and some opportunities for them. Next. I mentioned economic impact. The American Craft Spirits Association does report every year, and the number I quoted earlier is over $1 billion of economic impact. And given there's about over 30 or so, about 30 distilleries, did a quick little math. But the idea really is that the impact, we have direct, indirect, and inferred impact. We think that having this distillery on Main Street can be a magnet for Main Street, can help attract more visitors, help keep and increase spending in Westminster and Carroll County in general, the partnerships with local businesses, the supply chain partners, value add partners, cross promotion. We can all bolster each other's revenues and help business growth across the board. And of course, job creation, not just within our company, but also with our partners' businesses too, and help promote some more job creation as well. Next slide. I think Andrew has showed this picture already. This is the building we are looking at. Have secured 116, 118 East Main Street. The idea is to have the distillery operations on the right-hand side, which is basically an empty garage space. It is very rough inside. The right side of it, a tasting room, an event venue. Right now, it is an office space in there, and parking is in back. We actually love the look of this building, but we do admit it needs a little bit of a facelift. So we're not looking at any major structural changes, looking to use the existing building footprint, facade. We might change out the windows. We repaint the exterior. We might need some additional utility hookups, etc. But the idea really is to kind of take this building and make it look more fabulous on Main Street. In terms of signage, we are looking at doing signage in that middle part, the drive-through, middle part up there, put some signage for Covalent Spirits there. That's a primary signage we're looking at to add to this building. And we may consider adding a small signage up above the windows on the right-hand side. But the primary sign would be a Covalent Spirits sign right in the middle. Andrew, next slide, please. So this is the current interior floor plan. As I described, the left side is it's pretty much an empty space. There's not even a bathroom in there or anything. And then the right side right now is mocked up as an office that we would just remodel the inside to accommodate more of a tasting room area. And so that's kind of the current floor plan we're working with. I know there's questions around noise and exhaust, hours of operation, and parking and signage and lighting. So the operation here will be on the left-hand side. So the operation will be separate in two different buildings. So that's a great benefit because we do separate the two. There's very little noise and I guess fumes that comes off of distillery operations. The distillery, the still itself is a fairly closed system. And things that come out is what you collect at the end, which is your spirits, so to speak. There isn't much, there's a little bit of noise and agitation and everything, and agitator that's used, but because it's all the noise would be pretty much contained in your own space, you don't really hear it. You don't hear anything on the outside because these buildings are not attached to anybody else. That even more so, people will not hear anything. The smell. If we're just making gin or vodka, there'd be pretty much very little fumes of any sort. If we're making any sort of whiskey, the fermentation tanks will definitely have an aroma to it that is very similar to making bread, where your yeast is working on the grains. So the fumes will be more of like a yeasty smelling I call it an aroma. 'Cause I like that smell, but it's like baking bread or putting yeast in flour for bread kind of smell. So there is also very little to worry about in terms of, there's none to worry about in terms of outside or fumes kind of going out to every place, everywhere else. Out operation, we are looking at just a couple days a week for our tasting room, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, like 5 to 9, 5 to 10 kind of thing. It's not going to be opened every day. Production will only be, our first few years, we're only planning on doing about 40 to 60 runs. Each run takes about half a day. So figure that out, we're not even running every day. So once a week or a couple times a month, that's all we're really running our stills for the first few years. So we're not planning to do a 24/7 operation right now or anything like that. So the hours operation will be on the very limited side. And once again, all of the noise and the fumes are all contained within. Any noise in the tasting room, it's same things, all kind of contained within. There is, Andrew, can you go back to the previous slide, please? So talk about outdoor space. This building is set a little bit back from the sidewalk. So as you can see in this picture here, the dark shaded area is between the front door and the sidewalk. We would love to be able to use some of that space for an outdoor patio since it does not impede upon the very wide sidewalk or anything like that. So that would be something we would like to be able to do and have outside for our distillery. It won't be that many tables, so the noise level will be very minimal, and our hours are not, like I said, they're not very long either, only for a few days out of the week. Lighting is the sign might have a light behind it. Other than that, aside from just for security purposes, having an exterior light, as we all kind of do in for our homes and our buildings, those we could be set on timers and all that kind of stuff. Where we will definitely minimize any sort of light impact to it. So we're not planning some big neon marquee or anything that'll be lit up all day, all night long. Not at all. It's going to be a very subtle add to the outside. And in terms of for parking and everything, distillery operations, we expect not even a full-time person. So we're talking about running our stills only a few times a month. At most is probably one full-time person or one person even in there at a time. Maybe two if you want some company, because there's a long hours in there by yourself. Tasting room, same thing, probably about 2 people working in the tasting room to start, at most maybe 3 or 4, but it's going to be pretty much be us working in the distillery for the foreseeable future, and it'd be mostly all part-time staff. And I kind of calculated on the inside, it looks like we'll have about 1,500 square feet in the tasting room side, roughly. We still haven't finished all the floor plans and kind of figure out where you want to put our office versus our tasting room area and et cetera. But it should be roughly 1,500 square feet. And based on my math of what the guidelines that Andrew gave me, the 21 spaces should be enough for our operations. So I don't think it's a concern there. And that is, let's see, can you go to the next slide? Go one more. Okay. So this is a bird's eye view mock-up. So this is not real yet, but let's just give you kind of a visual, what I just described, roughly how it might look on the inside and everything. This is something that we're playing around with some ideas here. This is purely for illustrative purposes only. But I will stop there. That's my presentation. And I have a few folks who have kind of joined us tonight to say also a few words. Do they go next, or do you ask me questions next?
Does the board want to ask any questions at this time? I kind of think we need to step through each one of the conditions. You kind of whip through those pretty quickly, and there may be some questions specifically tied to the staff report as well in terms of some of the conditions that need to be met. But let me start with the board.
I don't have anything right now, Ed, until we step through those.
Okay.
Yeah, same with me. I'll wait.
Okay, I'm good too at this point. So we'll go ahead and, Ms. Yang, you can present others in whatever sequence you'd like.
Ed, before you proceed on, you had these slides that do not match up perfectly with the pre-hearing report. So we've got to bring these documents in as exhibits. And I don't know how you want to do those. And I also don't know how Andrew has them in.
He does have a PDF version of those. So the PDF version can be submitted if you like. We updated it today with some more diagrams to help illustrate some of these points a little bit better. But there's a PDF version that I sent to Andrew that could be used.
And Mr. Chair, if I may,
Yeah, go ahead, Andrew.
if the board does decide to admit that in the record as an exhibit, tomorrow I will print that off, put the exhibit sticker on it, and then send it to Council Blitz.
That
So,
works. Eric, does it?
yes, but I think you need a better description of what you're taking in, because in the latter pages of that PDF, she whipped through, she didn't actually address a few of those pages. So I guess I would want a total number of pages. And I think in the end, we need some descriptions of what some of those pages entailed. That is, we had the layout.
Mr. Blitz, do you want me to bring that back up on the screen?
Yes, I think you probably better. I mean, the chair has to rule on the admission of this as an exhibit. And I don't know whether, Ed, you want to break this up into separate exhibits or whether you want to treat it as one submission, but somehow for the record, we need to identify what we're bringing in.
If it contains everything that was previously submitted, plus whatever the additional slides that were added, then could we just replace the original pre-hearing statement, which is what this is, and replace it with this one?
You don't need to replace it because you don't need to take it. You can just take this in. But I don't know how many pages it is, and you also don't have possession of this document now. So
Right.
That's something that you, in evaluating the evidence before you, should have as a PDF right now. Andrew, can you email that PDF to the board?
I can.
I think you should do that. And how many pages is it? It looks like it's total of 14 pages.
You are correct, Mr. Blitz. If you would like, I can email that to the board now.
Please.
And why don't you do that? That
Do you-
will satisfy that requirement. Is the board comfortable with then having it this way and having seen it as part of the presentation?
I'm fine with it.
I am too.
Okay.
So
Mr.
that
Chair,
PDF would be Exhibit 3.
Okay,
Sorry to interrupt the
no,
presentation.
that's fine. No, that's good. We got to make sure we got a complete record of everything, that's for sure. Okay, so taken that in as Exhibit 3. And then now, Ms. Yang, back to you. We can go ahead and call your witnesses, whatever order you'd like.
Okay, great. I will first call a few witnesses and try and talk about the nature of this business and the impact it could have, and then transition to talking with some industry colleagues about it as well. So Mike, I will turn to you first. Thank you.
Just as a reminder to all the witnesses, your full name and address, please.
Thank you. Do you want my work address or my home address?
Home address, so
Okay.
it's consistent.
Very good. My name is Mike McMullen. I'm president of the Carroll County Chamber of Commerce. My home address is 55 Sullivan Road. Now people are going to write letters to me and say, Mike, you got to do this. I'm only kidding. I'm really honored to be here to be able to speak out for this. Main streets are hurting everywhere. And Covalent, these guys will be a destination, period. They'll help every business in the area. Small businesses have been swimming upstream during this whole COVID-19. That's no lie. They're hurting. They're the backbone of everything that we do. Some are closing, never to open. So enter these guys. Here we go. I believe that they should be welcomed with open arms for what they can bring to Westminster and to Carroll. I applaud their entrepreneurial spirit or spirits. Entrepreneurs are really visionaries, and Carroll is ripe with them. The big event we do at the Chamber, I think that probably most folks would know, is called the Carroll Biz Challenge. This year was our 9th one. We had 29 applicants, all local entrepreneurs, and we picked 5 who were going to pitch at a live event. Covalent was one of the 5. They did a great job. Everybody loved them. They got the audience vote, so they walked away with some cash. People were really jazzed up and excited about this. I think that when you see that type of excitement, they're onto something here. Breweries, places like theirs are economic catalysts for small towns. People love to go to them. It's a fun thing to do. We need more fun things to do in Carroll. It's a perfect spot for it. I don't know how much more I could say about it, except that my office is about a block right down the street, so I'll be able to go there and taste the stuff whenever I want. But I honestly believe that they are going to become a destination. So I would please ask you guys, approve this. Let's work with them. Let's get them set up in town.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you. I guess next up, I think Dr. Wack is on the Zoom call here too. Dr. Wack.
Thank you. I'm Robert Wack, 93 West Green Street, Westminster, Maryland, 21157. I concur with all of Mr. McMullen's comments, and I agree with the applicant's analysis of the market and the economic development impact. I think that this will have a significant impact, significant positive impact on Main Street. I served for 16 years on the Westminster City Council, and although I don't speak for the current elected officials, I think I have a pretty good idea what their thinking is, and I certainly know painfully well, the challenges of economic development on Main Street, given our somewhat Byzantine zoning code and the somewhat onerous parking requirements we have, and the unusual inventory of old properties that are hard to repurpose from their original design purposes. So all of those factors make economic development on Main Street, on all Main Streets of older small towns like ours, very challenging. Although I'm not a zoning attorney, I am quite familiar with our code, and this use, even though it's a special exception, is very congruent with and adjacent to several permitted uses in this zone, to include restaurants, social clubs, and taverns and nightclubs. So this is not an unusual use for this kind of property in this zone. So I would urge the board to take an expansive view of that. As the applicant mentioned, there is ample precedent in other Carroll County municipalities for approving this kind of use on Main Street, specifically Sykesville and Mount Airy. And I think that should be taken into account. A question was raised about the setback from the neighbors and the possible impact of noise. As you can see from the diagram from Google Maps, there's a very large parking lot in the back that will create a significant buffer between the facility and any neighbors to the southeast of the property, which will, I think, ameliorate any possible noise impacts on those neighbors. And then the final piece is that this is, as Mr. McMullen mentioned, is going to fit very nicely into the existing food and beverage businesses that we have on Main Street. And there will be a very powerful synergy between this business and those businesses that I think will increase foot traffic on Main Street and have a significant positive economic development impact for our community. And so I would urge the board to approve this special exception for this applicant. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Wack. I think Mr. Ambrose, Josh Ambrose is on. Josh, you're up. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Josh Ambrose. I live at 5 Marbeth Hill here in town, just off of Main Street. And I'm an associate dean at McDaniel College. I should state I am speaking for myself tonight and not on behalf of the college. But with that said, I want to concur with everything that has been said so far this evening, both by the applicant and by those speaking in favor of them. We bring many tens of thousands of folks already here to Westminster, and I'm convinced that these guys are going to fit right in and grow well here on Main Street. I'm also convinced that Nick and Atlas Real Estate will manage the property well and be very good neighbors. They're right across the road from this garage and have done an exemplary job renovating their space and being good downtown partners. Jennifer and Andrew are going to be exceptional neighbors. I haven't highlighted it yet, but I want to draw attention to their own pedigree of previous success. Drew has been a stalwart leader in our educational system here in town. Jennifer has run a very successful consulting company in the greater Northern Virginia area. She has graciously recently agreed to be our new entrepreneur in residence at McDaniel College. These are folks that are extremely successful. They're not flying by the seat of their pants. And I think even in the application materials that they're sharing tonight, I think it shows that they are thinking through all eventualities and probabilities as best as they are able to. I think they're going to succeed again. And they're already deeply embedded in our community. They're giving back and to our community in big ways, to Magic, to college, to our downtown ecosystem. So I would echo Mr. McMullen's words and encouraging us to welcome them in turn with open arms. So in summary, I just want to simply say wholeheartedly endorse their application, and I can't wait to walk through the doors when they open.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Josh. We're going to shift gears a little bit and hear from an industry colleague, Kevin Addix.
Good evening. Kevin Addix, Director of the Maryland Distillers Guild and founder of Grow and Fortify. My address is right over the hills at 819 West Padonia Road in Cockeysville, 21030. And I'm here to just comment in support of Covalent Spirits, and but by simply stating that our work to help craft brewers and wineries in the county open up, as well as the distillers that are located in the county, have yielded economic activity, have yielded increased tourism, have yielded new jobs, new tax revenue, and most importantly, have expanded the sense of community. We hear time and time again from our members who have opened up just how reliant the community has come to be on their space, on their generosity, on their fact that it is a community gathering post, even during COVID, with outdoor seating with 50% capacity, whatever it might be. These businesses, because of the fact that they're supported by not only the immediate community, but by restaurants and by spirit shops and through distribution around the state, they've been able to, in many cases, stay open and provide that consistency within the community. And I see some of our members online here, and I want to commend them and also commend Jen and Drew for pushing forward with this at this time. It's hard to imagine trying to start a business. It's harder to imagine trying to start a business during COVID with the uncertainty of the fall and everything else coming ahead. So kudos to them, and I'm happy to be a resource about the industry and any potential or perceived impacts that a business like this may have.
Okay.
Thank you, Kevin. We have a few more folks on the line, but I also know that I also want to respect people's time overall. So I think I'm going to pause, end there for witness statements and field questions from the board.
Okay. Who wants to start on the board, or shall I? I'll go ahead then. To Jennifer and Andrew, you stepped through a number of the conditions rather quickly. There's a couple of things I'd like to back up on and just to make sure we've heard you cover those areas that are necessary. Under the noise and exhaust, you talked about it being minimal and or fumes that might come from the distillery side. Can you just repeat that and then also talk to whatever your maximum capacity might be as you foresee it on the tavern / event side, if that's a good way to refer to it? You expect any spill out from there, and then beyond that to your plans for outdoor seating.
Okay.
To the noise and fumes, there will be minimal noise and fumes. Any noise or fumes should be contained for the distillery operation side, all contained within the walls there. Should not hear anything from the neighbors or the outside, should not really smell anything. It's all contained within. I spent a year working at a distillery, so this is coming from personal experience, as well as talking to other distilling colleagues as well, that everything is contained within the walls. There won't be any issue of noise or smell outside. Then on the tasting room side, we are looking at a capacity of maybe 30 to 40 seats, roughly. So all the noise on the inside,
To restaurants.
all the noise on the inside is similar to any sort of cocktail lounge, just chatter and everything. Mhm.
I think if you want to make a comparison, you're thinking about the size of the tasting room is going to be, if you look at some of the existing businesses on Main Street now, it'll probably be about half to a third of the main restaurants that you see, similar to like a Rock Salt, to Johansson's and O'Lourdens and places like that, where the noise that's emanating from them would be significantly larger than something about a third of the size that we would have.
Mhm.
Okay.
And the outdoor seating area, we described there's some space between the building and the sidewalk that is not part of the sidewalk. It looks like it's a parking pad maybe back in the day. We would like to be able to have a few seats out there, but not a lot. We're looking
Right.
at like 10.
Yeah, and if we're looking at comparisons to give you a visual, think about the wine bar that's across the street and down the hill a little bit. They have an outdoor patio that's probably 4 times the size of that sidewalk area. So what we would envision is maybe a 3-foot high barrier that would be almost like a fencing that would secure that from the sidewalk. So you would have outdoor tables where people could sit. Probably about 6 to 8 tables would be all that we could fit out there. Less than, I would say, 24 people total would be able to sit on that space at any given time.
Mhm. So it's smaller than Rock Salt's patio. It's smaller than Raphael's outside. It'd be smaller
Right.
than Arson's patio as well. So it's much smaller than that. And noise is just conversation level
Right.
noise.
Okay. the board have any questions on that area or some others?
Just one question again on relating to noise. Is there any anticipation of having music, either like a guitarist or some sort of other than, I guess, general music in the just the
Sure.
tavern area?
Right. So think of the tasting room space as more like a lounge space when people come in. It's a cocktail lounge where it's lower music so people can still enjoy their drinks and have a conversation as opposed to going to a rock concert. So we don't envision something of that nature when they come in, because that kind of defeats the purpose of the educational experience that we want to provide, where we can talk to the people that are there, explain the process that we're using in the manufacturing side. And then when they enjoy their cocktail and sit with each other, having that type of experience where they can compare notes, they can participate in, if we're having a lecture, if it's a workshop. So the level of music that we're having is more of a background music. It wouldn't be the primary focus. And then obviously, if we had any live music events, that would be something that we would bring to the town to make sure we follow any ordinances that are already established.
Do you plan to?
Yes.
No, I was just gonna. Do you plan to have music outside at those tables as well?
No, well, if we have any music, it would be low level background music that you wouldn't really be able to hear beyond the building.
Right.
So we're not planning on having any loud piped in music on the outside at all. There might be a possibility of doing live music on the inside, but once again, that noise should be contained within the building, similar to how Lordens have, an Irish band come play once in a while, or a DJ performs at Raphael's kind of thing. We may entertain having that and support some local musicians, but outside
Would not have music.
The only question I have is there any plans to do anything to change any of the parking area? I know it's a little rough getting out of there. It's going to be a little tight if you have 21 spots filled and you try to make that turn, especially with cars parking along that. But is there any plans right now to do any adjustments back there or no?
Right now, no. We've looked at it, and I know it's a one-way street next to it. You could drive all the way around to come in. We might force traffic to go all the way around the building to come park in our spot potentially, if it looks like it becomes a jam through the middle, and just let people know that if you want to park on our lot, you go around the block and you park.
Come in the backside.
So same way as for Rock Salt's parking, you kind of go around the back to get into their parking. It took me forever to figure out Rock Salt actually had a parking lot actually back there. You go all the way around the back and you park, and that way you make sure there's no backup of traffic on Main Street or anything like that. So we may entertain that. But other than that, we're not looking to do any drastic changes yet on the parking or the roads or anything. But we are going to, but what we want to do is obviously work with the town. So if it looks like we need to change something, or if it looks like something else might be more streamlined and more efficient, then we obviously will entertain that, work with the town on that as we move further along in our plans.
So on the parking issue, one of the key things that city staff addressed is basically stating, how you can confirm that their 21 off-street proposed parking spaces will meet the minimum zoning ordinance. Have you looked at that ordinance and you're confident that that will do?
Yes.
Absolutely.
I've done some of the math already, and I've spoken with Mark and Andrew on it as well. And we're confident that we will be within the limits.
And consistent with the number of employees that you plan to have, and especially, you talked about what your initial hours might be. The number of employees for, those times.
We're the main staff right here.
We can
We'll
walk,
carpool.
and we can walk too. So we'll just ride our bikes down.
That'll save you parking space for paying.
Exactly.
So you're just starting with the two of you, basically.
Correct. And if anyone is working on staff with us, it'll be part-time help. So we may see 1 or 2 people come in and help us with the tasting room if the crowds luckily, hopefully require that. So, and if we have somebody in the manufacturing side, they would only be on a part-time basis as well. So they would probably be there when one of us would not. So it would not increase the overall number that we would need.
Okay.
Ed, I
Yes.
guess I have a question for staff to comment on, because their staff report in developing the parking requirements lists the 40 seats for the
Right.
tasting room and event, yet you've taken in testimony that they may have up to 24 people sitting outside. Wouldn't that also require an additional 6 parking spaces? Taking it up to 27.
Andrew or Mark?
And Mark, I don't know if you want me to answer this or if you want to.
You can.
Okay, okay. With doing the quick math here, it would be, let's see here, hold on 1 second. So with 6 proposed seats on the patio, that would be 46 spaces. So it'd be 11.5 spaces required out for just for the tasting room operations. So let me just put in 11.5. But with looking at the city zoning ordinance and with the excerpt on page 7 of 8 of the staff report, it mentions that the tasting room and event venue portion would be, so for a tavern use, pursuant to section 164-111C, such proposed use would have a parking requirement of 1 parking space per 4 seats or 1 parking space per 75 square foot of floor area devoted to customer service, plus 1 parking space per employee, whichever is greater. So just my opinion, and Mr. Depot, jump in if you see me go amiss. It looks like everything is okay because, well, because if there was 46 seats, there would need to be 11.5 spaces. But then the zoning ordinance says, or 1 parking space per 75 square feet of floor area devoted to customer service, plus 1 parking space per employee, whichever is greater. So 1,500 square feet divided by 75 square feet would equal 20 spaces, and 4 employees would be 4 spaces. So it's almost looking like it would have to be whatever is more, which would be 11.5 or 24 spaces for the tavern section. So 24 spaces, and then 2 employees in the distillery section, which would be 1.3, would have a total of 25. Well, actually then with the, sorry about that, the 11.5 and 1. So, 1 point. Oh, that, sorry, I apologize. That does not matter. So that would be 25.3. And the reason I say that does not matter is because whichever is greater for the tavern, the seats, even though 6 seats were added, which gave us another 1.5 spaces, the or for the square footage and the employees still equaled the 24, which was greater than the 11.5. So then it would still be, it would meet the parking ordinance.
Andrew, I don't understand where in the outside, and maybe I'm wrong in my notes about the testimony. I thought they were talking about 6 to 8 tables outside, which would be 24 total people, which would be a full addition of 6 parking spaces.
Well,
Not 6 people, 24 people.
Well, if I could,
Oh, okay.
I think the primary purpose that we brought up parking and discussion was to demonstrate they have a lot on site. And I think what we were looking at is trying to get a better understanding of what they could provide on site. And also making them aware of the fact that you're subject to parking spaces and regulations of the ordinance. So they would be limited to the ordinance for parking. Again, I think what we were looking at is trying to get a better understanding, because at these special exceptions, we don't get a good plan or a clear picture of some of these elements. And that's what we were trying to gather, is a better understanding of what are the number of spaces, not just what we could see in Google, but in operation, how many spaces that we have. Also looking at food trucks and other things that we were trying to understand as to what the impact of parking would be. In the end of the day, and Mr. Blitz is right, that, I mean, they're subject to the requirements of the ordinance. So they'd be limited to how many seats they can provide parking for. The downtown area does allow for a reduction in parking automatically, that Andrew pointed out in the staff report. And worst case scenario, if they do exceed the parking, they can always purchase parking through the city. I think the nice thing about this site is we're not looking at that. We have a lot of properties that they can't provide any parking on site. And therefore, to meet parking requirements, they have to then purchase parking throughout the city and city spaces. I think the important element here is that we have parking on site. Staff was just trying to get a much better understanding of the operation of the parking, how many they have out there, and are there food trucks? What would that operation be? Would that take up parking spaces? We'd certainly want the food trucks to be on site, not parked along the street. So taking up parking spaces that way. So at the end of the day, and Mr. Blitz is right, the outside seating would be also calculating the parking calculations.
Is that something that also needs to be part of this initial site plan then? If that's a plan?
That would be at the site plan. I would think we were looking at parking more related to the use, because you're looking at the special exception use itself and how does it fit in this property, in this location. I think parking for these type of uses is significantly important, so that you're not placing parking off-site and that they do have an on-site. Again, we were just trying to get a much better understanding and also get on the record as to the operation of the parking. But they would still be subject at the time of site plan, the regulations of the ordinance.
Right.
I have a question related to the discussion that's been going on. You obviously, at least at this point, assume your distillery function is going to be pretty limited. As part of your business plan, will most or all of your product be distributed on site, or do you plan a distribution off site? I'm looking in terms of truck traffic and that kind of stuff in and out.
Most of our product will be distributed on site, retail. Any local distribution that we might do would be us driving in our car to that location to sell it. So there won't be any major big truck traffic.
We wish.
We wish. It'd be a nice problem for us to have to go figure out down the road. But nope, it's our little car driving around. That's it.
Okay.
Mhm.
Thank you.
I have one other question too, something that we need to address, and this is all part of the staff report too concerning signage. You briefly mentioned what some of your intent might be for signage. Can you review that again, please?
So what we were looking at was a signature sign for our company to be right in between the two buildings in that archway.
Yeah.
Something that you would see is flat to the facade, would have a backlighting. So it would be lit from the building itself, so that during the day it would be painted in a color that would be easily seen. And then at night it would have this almost like an auburn type of color. So it would be subtle. Right there in between the two buildings. So nothing on the street, nothing on a pole, no big billboard type signs.
And you are familiar with the code requirements for signage in terms of lighting and size?
Correct.
Okay. Any other questions from board members?
Andrew, I'm assuming all of the letters were sent to everybody listed in the staff report as far as looking for any feedback.
Yes, the letters were sent to all adjoining property owners.
No responses.
And no responses?
No, sir. No, ma'am.
Okay.
And don't forget, you need to give staff the chance to cross-examine the applicant if they
I was
want.
just going to go to that. Does staff want to make any comments before we ask for the applicant's summary?
None from me, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Any closing comments you'd like to make, either of you applicants?
Yeah. So we just want to say thank you, first of all, for taking the time to meet with us tonight to review our application. We hope that the folks that we were able to invite today show the commitment that we have and the support that we have among the community. You can see that our realtors here. So, we have Nick is the owner of the building. They have community members who have been very active within the government. They know the system, they know the economics, everyone that's part of the Economic Council and the development of our town. We just feel really strongly that we're bringing something that Westminster needs, and we can contribute to the feel of the town and the vibe of Main Street. We think we're going to do it in a classy, positive way that you're all going to be very proud of, and we can't wait to see you come by when we open up once we get some good news about approval. So thank you.
Thank you.
I like your backdrop too.
Yeah, right.
Salesmanship,
that was very purposeful.
I'm sure.
And the drinks will be on the house when you open up for us.
Always, Mike, always.
Thank you.
Okay, if that's it, we will close testimony. Does the board, do we have a motion or any further discussion?
I'll motion to move forward with approval of the exception.
We
Second.
have- All right, we have a motion to approve and a second. All in favor?
Can I, before you
Aye.
take a
Oh,
vote,
I'm sorry. Discussion, any further discussion?
before you take the vote, I'd like to just ask whether you want to address conditions. The staff requested one condition. I would have a suggestion for another. The staff requested that site plan approval be a condition of
Yeah,
the special exception. I don't know whether you want to include that, and I will throw out there that you might want to have as a separate second condition compliance with the parking requirements of Article 16. The reason I suggest that as a condition is that parking requirements are a requirement of
Right.
giving a special exception. And you don't have a parking plan associated with this. So right now you're kind of flying blind unless you make a condition that has staff then validate the parking requirements.
Well, based on,
It's in 164, 171B.
right. Based on discussion. I'm sorry. Based on the discussion that we've had on that part of it, it appears to me that they are meeting the parking requirements as stated in the conditions. I'm not sure what else we really need to do there, except to make that part of the motion. Is that what you're referencing, Eric?
Yeah, I mean, there's two separate things. Staff had requested that the site plan be added as a condition of granting a special exception because you don't have a site plan in front of you yet.
Right.
And then the second one that I was suggesting would be compliance with the parking requirements of Article 16, which
Right.
is somewhat duplicative because it is also addressed in site planning, but
Okay. Brenda, would you want to amend the motion then to include those?
I do. I'll amend the motion to approve with the conditions of adding a site plan and the compliance with the city parking requirements.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So we have unanimous approval. I think you've presented well. We
Thank
will be back in touch with you once Eric draws up our findings and resolution. Probably take the better part of how long, Eric?
3 weeks.
3 weeks? you'll have that formal approval. Congratulations, you did a good job here. We look forward to seeing you.
Thank you
We
very
look forward
much.
to seeing you too.
Absolutely.
would also
Congratulations, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
I
thank
would
you.
just add, given your business plan that you gave us, the site you have and the building and the square footage and everything, you're going to have a lot of flexibility. I think I'm optimistic that things will go well for you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank very
Appreciate
much.
that.
Thank you. Thank
Do you have
you.
a target open date?
Before this time
Yeah,
next year.
we'd love to. We're shooting for next
September
September.
next year.
Mhm.
Yep. So we're hoping,
Yeah.
and things kind of just fell in place. So we're very fortunate we were able to get to the space. And I know Nick, you're on the Zoom call, and Nick and Greg had helped us out with this a lot. And so I'm glad we can partner up on this. Yeah. Yep.
Yep.
Fall next year, we're gonna hopefully be
Hopefully
grand
start to
opening.
see some renovations begin sometime late winter, early spring.
Mhm.
Very good.
Yep.
Good luck.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you.
we thank you all, and thank you for your witnesses. Thank you for everybody's time.